What if all of life came to you with ease and joy and glory? What if that which you've always imagined possible actually is? What if it was possible to create a life you're excited to get out of bed for? Welcome to Creating Beyond podcast. I'm Ashlee Rose, here to introduce you to the tools you can use to create the life you've always dreamed of. Is it time for you to step into everything you came here to be? So welcome everybody to another episode of Creating Beyond podcast. Today I have the amazing, the magnificent Julia Sotas with me, and I am so grateful to be having this conversation about right voice for you. So thank you so much for being here, beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I could talk about right voice for you all day. And Ashlee and I were just in Italy in the Piedmont region, staying in a castle, doing this right voice for you training. And because every year you recertify your training or people become new facilitators. And so right voice for you is such a fabulous, unique class and set of tools. And this particular training class, it's not even training is the wrong word. It's more of a magical, mystical journey that we all go on together. And it just totally reignited my love of right voice for you. And also it's a very vast practice, and so I sort of learned about a whole other part of it this class. So I'm really excited about the new part that I basically figured out in my own way.
That's so amazing. And for those of you that are not aware, I have just certified for the first time as a
cool. Congratulations.
Right voice for you facilitator. So it's interesting. I took this class first 2 years ago, and it changed my entire reality. And I remember thinking, I've got to do this training, and there hasn't actually been a live training for the last 2 years because of everything that's going on in the world. So I wanted to have a conversation about it because a lot of people think that this is a singing class, and I can't sing. I mean, I'm sure that I could if I practiced, but this is not what the class is about. And most of us don't realize that we have lots of different voices. We have our physical voice, but our voice is also about how we show up in the world, what our creative output is. We have an energetic voice too, and a lot of us don't actually recognize this. All of us have this voice in the world, and it's not what we put on social media. It's what we choose to wear. It's our smile. It's how we present ourselves. And I think for me, this class is about allowing you out into the world and including you in the world, and allowing the world to become aware of a possibility that no one else is aware of. So what is right voice for you?
Well said, Ashlee. That's exactly it. Well, yeah. I want to read you something.
Please.
I got back from this Right Voice for You training, and I've been at Right Voice for a few years, and I think I took my first Right Voice class about 10 years ago in 2012, and I think that I'm just starting to, with every Right Voice class that I've taken or facilitated, I learn a little bit more about having my voice in the world. And the awesome thing about consciousness is it goes on, it's you can always be more aware. My father-in-law was being a bit of an ass one day, and he was like, so why do you need to keep taking these classes? Why do you need to keep going? And I'm like, well, have you ever read an extremely complex, esoteric book and not understood it and had to keep studying it and rereading things and understanding them year after year as you grew as a person? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, it's like that, but even more. Okay, so be quiet. So it's something that can never really be mastered necessarily. It's this ongoing journey of possibilities where you get to open like a new door to a new universe all the time. And it's just
Mm,
really, it's exciting. It's really an adventure. And I think that's what a huge part of having your voice in the world is the willingness to live life as an adventure. And
mm,
that's what Right Voice has really taught me is like if I am if I wake up in the morning and I go, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to, you know, perform all of this in order to make money, to be right, to be normal, to make things work. I can't live
mm.
like that.
I love that. And it's interesting because Chris had mentioned, who facilitates these classes, that Right Voice View used to be called expanding the creative base of your life. And that's kind of like a very similar energy to what you're actually talking about. And
Yeah, what a great point.
yeah, and I think for me, like, these Right Voice View classes have allowed me to have my voice in the world and actually show up, because I mean, like, for me, these classes are not so much about being the loudest person and showing up, live on social media 100 times and being totally visible and putting yourself way out there. For me, it's actually like taught me to receive. And I think these Right Voice View classes is actually about learning to allow yourself to receive like way more than you think. Like this whole idea about having no walls, no barriers, and total vulnerability when you actually show up, that actually then allows everyone to contribute to you, everything to contribute to you, the universe to contribute to you. And it's interesting, like I think so much I used to make it about like when I become a facilitator and I was like, oh my God, now I've got to be in front of people and speak and do lives and all this kind of stuff. I was making it about everyone else seeing me. And then I realized, like, what if all of this was actually about seeing myself, like seeing my greatness? And it's so interesting that I love everyone has different um, ideas and ways they facilitate these classes and like what it's changed for them. And for me, it's actually been about seeing my brilliance, seeing my greatness, and then allowing the world to know a possibility that only I'm aware of. And I don't know if you've had this, Julia, but I know for me, when I become a facilitator of these tools, I was like, I don't want to be another like noise. Like everybody knows the tools. Like I don't want to be talking at people and telling them what they already know. And then I recognized, like, wait a second, but no one uses the tools the way I do. No one actually sees the world
Wow.
the way I do. And so these Right Voice View classes have been about me actually allowing me out in the world and starting to see and acknowledge my greatness.
Yeah, that's such a great way of putting it. I love that. And like, and it is so amazing. Like it was so easy for me um as a facilitator to go, well, why am I doing like do I like am I really valuable here? Like do I really like maybe this isn't the best because the first few years of me being a facilitator were not super easy. Like I definitely um had to deal with a lot of my own personal demons and stuff. And so there's a lot of times where I wanted to quit and, um, you know, just things didn't seem to be working. But so there's this thought like, well, like, should I like just give up or like, is it really matter? Like, why me? You know, like, I don't need to be doing this. And I would have all these thoughts like, I should just go be a waitress or like, you know what I mean? I'm that maybe that's my calling. I'm going to be a waitress. And but it was and I'd have that for like a second and be like, no, that's somebody else's reality, that's not my reality. And I think that like there have been times where I'll explain something in a class and people get it in a way that like and maybe even the founders of Access, Gary and Dane, they could explain it and they wouldn't get it. Or you'll
Mm,
explain something actually, or like we'll have a conversation and we'll be talking and you'll say something, explain something in a totally different way. And it's like, oh my God, I never thought about it
mm,
like that. And
yeah.
your awareness expands my reality. And so, yeah, it's this amazing like thing where we are pieces of the puzzle. And
Mm,
it's like, it sucks when you're not willing to be your own piece
yeah.
because things don't work as well for the universe when you're not willing to be you.
Totally. And like as an infinite being, like all of our infinite beings overlap infinitely. And like if you're a piece of the puzzle and you're not willing to include you in the world, and as I said, that's not you showing up on social media. That doesn't mean you have to be like, standing on a stage like singing, but just the willingness to like have no walls and barriers and get the gift of you. If we don't allow ourselves to be that, like the whole world actually suffers. And I was having a conversation with a friend yesterday and just acknowledging him for his brilliance and his greatness. And like he was melting, and there was like stuff coming up for him. And I just said, just allow yourself to melt, like the world's been missing you. And I think that's kind of like the energy of Right Voice for You class with me. And yeah, like what it's changed for me. It's like I've started to get that, like, if I'm not willing to include me in the world, like the world misses you. And not like misses you isn't kind of the right like words, but like similar energy.
Mhm.
And I think like when we allow ourselves to like be in communion and have intimacy, like that space of allowance and gratitude and vulnerability and trust of ourselves, then would we even give a shit about how we sound or how we showed up or what people thought of us? So this isn't just for facilitators or people that are coaches or people that are like in front of a public audience. It's like we can have our voice in relationships, with business, with money, with our body. Like our voice shows up in so many different ways. So I think it's really getting to the point like of not giving a shit what you sound like, how you show up as, and actually enjoying the shit out of yourself no matter what.
Totally, totally. And I did a class. I've done two Right Voice for You classes in Saudi Arabia in the last few years. And I did this last Right Voice for You, and I called some of the people who were in the class after the class to check up on them and see how they were. And they said, I don't know what it was about that class, but I am speaking up for myself at work and
Mm,
I am leading my team, whereas I was a shy mouse before. And
yeah.
another lady said, I am re-questioning my marriage because my husband has been basically controlling me based on our religion to such a degree.
Yeah.
And she said, I have my voice and I am really looking at this and I want to make sure that I have me in this marriage. I'm not doing this for
Mm,
somebody else.
yeah.
And another lady's business, facilitation business, expanded. Like, so it's like all these
Wow.
people got some version of their voice in the world, and just were so, like, they had this level of being proud of themselves and
Yeah.
able to stand their ground,
Yeah.
which was like, and for a Saudi Arabian woman, that's not a normal reality, you know?
Yeah, totally. And like that's the gift of you actually including you in the world. Like you actually end up receiving more of you when you include you, and you get to have what's true for you. And that can show up in like so many different ways. And it's been showing up in so many different ways in my reality too. But I guess kind of the thing that like keeps us from showing up as us is generally speaking like what we've already decided that we'd be received as, or how we've already decided that we'd be received. And like we have all these judgments of us, and so often like, and I know for me like becoming a facilitator, like I already decided that no one was going to listen to me, that I had nothing to say, that I had nothing of importance to say. And like I said, that people had already heard these things 1,000 times, but it's like, what decisions and conclusions and judgments have you guys made that actually keep you from showing up as you, that actually keep you from having your voice in the world? Even if that is like in cooking, in like any area, because we have all these capacities that are different that nobody else has. And like, as Julie was saying about her cooking, it's like if you're not willing to include even you in that cooking, then it's different. Like it won't show up the same. And the thing is, like, our point of view creates our reality. So if you've already decided how someone's going to receive you, then that's all that you'll see in order to prove ourselves right. So often it's so interesting. Like when you start acknowledging the gift and the greatness of you and including you in the world, it's so funny how many people actually start to acknowledge you, or how many people you actually can receive that acknowledgement from. So it's, yeah, it's been such an interesting journey using these tools.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is.
Do you,
And like, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you have a specific, like pragmatically, tool from the Right Voice for You classes, or a tool that you use in class that people listening can start using to actually allow themselves and include themselves in the world more?
That's a good question. Um, well, there's a lot and it's hard to
Mm,
pick just one, but I mean, one of the things that I really, really like to use are these things called energy pulls,
mhm,
because energy pulls are how you basically connect with somebody.
mm,
So like before you get on stage or before you're about to talk to somebody or have a conversation, maybe you're nervous about it. It's like what you do is you start pulling energy through the whole universe, through them and through you. And then when you start talking to them, you create a flow back and forth between you and them. And if this sounds sort of out there or like hard to really materialize, you can go to my YouTube channel and I have like a bunch of energy pulls that you can follow along and start to get how this actually works and how you do it. But that's such an amazing tool because like when we shut our energy off, when we judge ourselves, we shut our energy off from the world. And these energy pulls are a way where you have to put your barriers down and really connect with somebody.
mhm,
Even in psychology or, different academic practices, they say that 90% of communication is nonverbal.
mm,
Um, but it's actually 90% of communication is energetic. And
mm.
these energy flows, learning how to manipulate energy, change energy, and flow energy is actually how you create a connection with somebody.
Yeah.
So I really love that tool because it's allowed me to connect with a lot of people from all over the world and just have an easier time with what's possible.
Mm. I love those because I started using those as well when I did my first Right Voice for You class, and it does create way more ease because when you pull energy and then flow it, so just you can visualize or you can just say energy flow, but even from the back of you out the front of you, that flowing of energy is like allowing you out into the world. And for me, like it changed everything because what most of us don't realize is we are aware, and I'm still getting how aware I am. Like every day I have these aha moments of like, oh, I was just aware. Oh, I was just aware of that as well. For me, like when I started actually showing up in front of people or going live, like we don't realize like how many people's realities we tap into just by pressing that start button, the people that are going to watch it now, in the future, and then all the people that they're actually connected to. And that can create this space of like the stop, the blank, the I don't know what to say. And the energy flows have just created like way more ease for me in that. And then also like expanding your energy out. So that also helps me because oftentimes when we go to like speak, if we're specifically talking about like speaking in front of people, we contract our energy to the size of our head to try and think about what to say. And then we're kind of collapsing our zone. Whereas if you just picture like expanding your energy out to the outside edges of the universe, and as I say that, you guys are starting to do it, then you have more space and it actually becomes more ease kind of pulling things and actually having a conversation. So that's also probably one of my other favorite tools that is not specifically a Right Voice View tool, but it definitely creates a lot more uh, when you're having a conversation with people.
Yeah, it does. They just make life so much easier. And when I first
Yeah.
started my access consciousness business, I was like, how am I going to do this? And uh, Gary Douglas facilitated me and he said, do these energy flows, like sit down and do a 5 or 10 minute exercise with them every single day, and
Mm,
your business will grow. And I did.
yeah.
And my business, I was 20 years old. Who's going to listen to a 20-year-old? And I did. And I had all kinds of people coming from
Yeah.
everywhere. I had a thriving business. And
Wow.
so, and it was all due to the energy pulse. It was so
Yeah.
cool. Such a magical gift. Like,
So
how's
don't
that
use them.
possible? Yeah, exactly. Don't
Whatever you
do
do,
it.
don't use
Very
them.
bad for you.
And I think before we finish this, I just wanted to kind of add as well. It's like, really, like, what have you guys decided needs to be like changed or fixed in order to actually like include you in the world, have your voice in the world, or show up? Because like really the other thing I've got from I mean, there's a million things I've got from these classes, and I'm going to continue to do like episodes on this and kind of speak to this because there's so many different ways we could go. But what if like nothing needed to be fixed? And I remember in the Right Voice for You class I took in Sydney, like Chris was saying, like, how many of you have already decided that something needs to be fixed in order to actually show up, be visible, be seen? And he said, what if nothing needs to be fixed? What if you've just got to be willing to get to the space of allowance of you and the space of not caring about what anyone thinks of you and not making anyone else's point of you relevant? So my question to you guys is, what have you decided that needs to be fixed that actually doesn't require to be fixed, that if you allowed yourself to have that space of vulnerability and allowance with you, would allow you to have your voice in the world? So often we go to, there's a problem, but when we're looking, oftentimes, and I heard Chris say this in the class as well, like oftentimes when we're trying to fix something, we're already coming at it from a judgment. We've already decided it needs to change because we've judged it as right or wrong. So really, like, the key to even having your voice in the world and including you out in the world is actually getting out of judgment and getting into allowance of you, and knowing that right now where you are, there is no right, there is no wrong. You're not wrong. You've never been wrong, and you're still not wrong. And that's something I tell myself constantly as well. But I wanted to like end there with, what if nothing actually needed to be fixed?
Wow, that's such a great place to end it, because that is where we go to of why we shouldn't, why we can't, what's wrong with
Yeah,
us. It's
yeah,
like, yeah,
exactly. And
totally
that
getting the allowance of you is so important.
it's like the key to everything. And I've got to do another episode about that. But really, like, I guess what I notice as well, becoming a facilitator, because this is where I've seen it show up the most, oftentimes, like, we don't allow ourselves to have our unique perspective unless it's validated by others. And so it was interesting, like in the class I did with Chris as well, like I had mentioned to him about always wanting to start a business program because, people have said to me, like, you're different in business, like, how have you created what you've created? But because I be it, I'm like, I'm not even sure I have words for that. And what I recognized in that class of how much I wasn't willing to actually have my voice and speak about business because it wasn't validated by this reality. Like, this reality tell you that you've got to do X, Y, and Z, and there's, you've got to do the algorithms and the structure and the force and the effort. And it wasn't like that for me. So because like this reality didn't validate my unique perspective, I wasn't willing to have my voice in business until recently, where I made a different choice and started, my Winging It business program. And I have a free group that you guys are welcome to join if you're not in already, for those of you listening. But yeah, it's like, what unique perspective do you have about the world, or do you have about business or money or body or relationships, that if you actually allowed yourself to never have to be validated about it, but actually have what you know, would actually change the world? So I feel like we could be talking about this topic for like ever. So I will stop it there. I know Julia
Yeah.
is going to a concert. And I get there's going to be way more conversations about this. I've asked a number of Right Voice for You facilitators to jump on this podcast and to do some videos for us to speak more about this, because if you allowed yourself to have your voice in the world and included you in the world, the whole world would be so different. And I would love to see you guys including you.
Totally. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank
So
you so much for being here with me. I'm so grateful for you. And I'm so grateful I got to meet you in person and I get to see you again in
I
Paris
know.
in the flesh.
Ashlee's tall, everybody. She's really tall and has the most beautiful legs and jewelry and clothes. It was so good to see your body. I was like, dang.
Thank you. And where can people find you, honey? What do you have coming up?
Yeah, so my website is juliasotas.com. So juliasotas.com. And I have a really awesome shop there. You can, buy all kinds of different products out of all kinds of different topics. And then if you type my name into YouTube as well, Julia Sotas on YouTube, I think I have something like 300 videos or something. I've had my YouTube channel for a long time. So there's a lot of videos you could watch for days and maybe a month of videos that I have on there, all amazing content and different things on different topics. So
Awesome. And do you have any Right Voice for You classes coming up on the schedule?
No, I don't. I think I'm gonna go do another one in Saudi Arabia.
Amazing. Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
check Julia's website for all of that. And I'm going to start adding some dates and stuff as well. It's been very loud. I'm getting a Right Voice for You 3-day class on the Sunshine Coast probably at the end of September after I come back from my second Europe holiday of the year, which I never would allow myself to do before using these tools. So who goes to Europe twice in the space of 2 months? So yeah, how does it get any better? Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for being here and listening with us. And if you didn't realize, this is going to be on YouTube as well. So go to YouTube and watch this. If you've been listening to the audio, I could have mentioned that at the start and I didn't. Surprise. If you'd like to listen to this again. And I'll see you guys next week for another episode of Creating Beyond podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen into this episode and my show. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if it has been a contribution to you, please leave a 5-star review, subscribe to my show, and share this episode with anyone you know that may be looking to create their life as something greater. You can find more about me at Ashlee, ASHLEE-rose.com, and you can find more information about the tools of Access Consciousness at accessconsciousness.com.